The first modification to the state's stay-at-home order was to get people back to scheduling surgeries and seeing their doctors. So what does this mean for a local fertility center that we spoke to last week? We now welcome Dr. Carolina Sueldo with the Women's Specialty and Fertility Center in Clovis for an update. And Doctor, thank you for joining us again. Now, as of last week, the new treatments for couples were on hold. So what does the relaxation of the governor's order mean for your patients and for you and your staff?
Absolutely. So, as I mentioned the last time we spoke, the American Society of Reproductive Medicine back on March 17th had advised or recommended that fertility clinics put a hold to new treatment starts until we could get a better handle and understanding on COVID-19 and what it meant for our public health. That guidance was updated every 2 weeks, and just this past weekend, they updated and basically said that, they now see a path forward and outlined some guidelines. So the three physicians, my two partners, Dr. Michael Shin, Dr. Carlos Sueldo, and myself, we sat down and really talked about taking into consideration Governor Newsom's updated statements about reinstating non-urgent cases into hospitals. When we talk about the ASRM guidance and their change in terms of now looking at a path forward and looking at the number of cases and sort of what's happening here locally, we made the decision as a practice to thoughtfully and safely look to start reopening to treatment. So we absolutely moved forward. We started with that yesterday as of 8 o'clock in the morning. We couldn't be more excited to be back to treating patients, but it's definitely not going to be business as usual.
I would imagine. Did your center begin to reach out to the patients, or have patients, once the governor kind of eased those particular restrictions, did you start hearing from your patients who were anxious to begin treatments again?
Yeah, so when we spoke to patients during the latter part of March and April, we encouraged them to call back with their next period for an update, whether that was the April menses or the May menses. We also made announcements on social media for those that have an interest and following us on there. And we had some patients reach out on their own. Hey, the governor made these statements. What does that look like for us now? So I would say all three avenues, but mainly patient-driven, to be honest.
I can imagine that would be the case. So you mentioned it's not business as usual. So what special precautions will you be taking for you and your staff and for the patients?
Yeah, so again, we want it to be thoughtful. We want it to be safe, or as safe as could be, when it comes to both our patients and our staff. So we are taking certain precautions, things like no visitors to the appointments, limiting the appointment times or flexibility of appointment times to try and minimize the traffic here in the office, continuing with telehealth, because that has actually been a great way to keep the traffic in the office here low and still have access to care and continue to see patients. We're also planning to do face coverings, temperature checks, all the sort of things that you can find recommended by the CDC and Fresno County Public Health Department. So we're really trying to take those extra steps, but still be able to provide care.
Well, all of that makes sense. When you say no visitors, this process involves couples, so a mother and a father. So will the hopeful mothers to be coming by themselves now, or will couples
Correct.
be allowed to come?
So for the short term, at least in the immediate next 2 to 4 week period, we are allowing patients only. We are happy to have partners on FaceTime or Skype chat, or however, if they're downstairs in the car. But it's really important to us to try and minimize that exposure and keep trying to flatten the curve, even though we are looking to treatment at this point.
Well, I guess in so many ways we have to get creative with how we go about taking care of our business as usual. And it sounds like you've come up with some creative ways to do that. Dr. Carolina Sueldo with the Women's Specialty and Fertility Center in Clovis, we thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
Bye-bye.